Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.buzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the Innova.buzz podcast today from Lisbon in Portugal, Tiago Faria. He's a remarkable business mentor who's got a revolutionary approach to marketing. It's all about anti-marketing, in fact, which is a fascinating term. I'll be exploring that a little bit, but more importantly, he's now pioneering what he calls the dream method for helping entrepreneurs and influencers really expand their authority by tapping into other people's audience through podcasting. So, something that's very dear to my heart. Welcome to the Innova.buzz podcast, Tiago. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Oh, Jürgen, it's a true honor. Thank you so much again for your time. Super excited to be here and can't wait to talk about the random experiment I did last year that completely changed my business. It's going to be a fun chat.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to doing a deep dive into that, and also from how you ended up in podcasting, sort of from your corporate days in sales at Google, I believe, if I remember rightly. So before we get on to all things like the dream method and podcasting and the experiment you mentioned, what's the impact you're hoping to make in the world?
Well, I think the most impactful thing I would love to give to my audience, which is my target, like the people I would love to help, which are coaches, consultants, service providers that rely on trust to sell high ticket, is to make their lives more much more easier and smoother and more fun than the one I've been having for the past 5 years. Because I've tried everything, I've experimented so many different things and fell into all the traps and shiny objects that keep us distracted and not focused on one thing consistently. So that's kind of the my mission now from now on is to show the simple path and the one that doesn't get us distracted with overly complicating things. Just go back to the basis, go back to creating networks. No need to create complex funnels and ads and stuff like that. There's tons of opportunities for us to tap into our current everything we have in our world, and also tap into other people's networks and audiences. So that's basically my mission, to make everything smoother, more fun, and it's possible. It really is, as long as we avoid distractions and
Yeah.
keep focused consistently for long periods of time on one thing. Um,
Hmm.
I know it's not
Yeah, well,
fancy, it's not
distraction.
fashionable, it's not something that sells like crazy. This kind of messaging that you have to do something until it works, not if it works, right? It's a bit boring,
Yeah.
but it's the path.
Yeah, yeah. Well, distractions are kind of the bane of all entrepreneurs, right?
Exactly.
It's yeah. All right.
Unfortunately.
Well, you did talk to me a little bit about the experiment you ran a little while ago, getting on 67 podcasts, I believe it was, in 3 months or 4 months before we started recording. So, how did you? Well, why did you set out to do that, or did you set out to do that? So many, and what did you learn on that journey?
No, absolutely. I was, as I said, I was for 4 or 5 years experimenting a lot of things, right? And I was creating content constantly. I was constantly first on my blog. I started. When I put something in my head, I'm obsessive about it. So I started 90-day challenge on my blog, creating 90 pieces of content for 90 days, and I kept it going for a long time. Then I shifted to YouTube. I made 120 videos in 120 days, and kept it going for a long time. Then on Facebook, creating videos all the time in my Facebook group, etc. So it was overwhelming at some point, right? The effort of us looking at a blank page, first of all, to create the post. Sometimes we spend hours there, thinking, "Oh, what's something interesting? I have to put here something fascinating, right, for my audience." Or turning on the camera and thinking awkwardly, "Okay, now I have to be interesting. I have to perform. Okay, something has to be come out of this that is useful for my people." It takes a lot of time, right? You probably know about that, and lots of people feel the same. That it's kind of it makes us hate it a bit. It makes us procrastinate because it's a lot of effort and
Mm.
sometimes it comes unnaturally to us. So in last year, I kind of burned out. Okay, enough of this. Enough of this. My content wheel. So I started recycling my content using my older things. But at some point, it stopped working because people notice it, right? And I started struggling to get my leads. I was starting to push a lot of people, cold messaging, and it made me hate it even more. Wife was already getting worried. Oh, Tiago, what's happening here? Things were getting tight, so I had reached that kind of valley of despair where, okay, I wanted to grow, but I cannot go back to the hustle and grind. But that brought kind of more unpredictability to the business, financial roller coaster. Money was going fast. I had some sleepless nights, starting every month from zero, right? Okay, I cannot do the same that I was doing before. I need to find something different. We even considered jobs for some points, but no, we cannot do this. There has to be a better way. So, and then the most amazing thing happened just before we went on holidays. We were going to Georgia here in Europe, for most random destination, but we decided to go there. And before going, I received an email from my mentor, and he had his new beta program open. It was completely aligned with me. He said, no need for content, just good old networking, referrals. So my wife agreed, maxed out my credit card, committed to it. And one of the things my mentor said there is that podcast guesting was an amazing way to create a network and great partnerships. And I went all in. So I did this. I went all in because I'm obsessive about these things. So 4 months, I did the 67 podcast,
Yeah.
and it was true. It's an amazing way to create amazing partnerships and referral partnerships. And you never know what can happen, right? You agree
Mm.
that? Well, I'm sure you interviewed more than 600 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing way to create amazing relationships, partnerships, and maybe even turn them into clients. You never know what can happen.
Mm.
But Jürgen, you know what's the best thing that happened? One of the hosts, after the interview went live, she sent me the email saying, "Oh, here it goes. The interview is live. Thank you so much for that." But she also added 5 reels that I could use for my own
Mm.
audience of good parts of the interview, and I was, "Oh my god, this is free content, right? Seamlessly extracted from me through a natural, fluent conversation." And it was basically the dream marketing scenario, right? I'm creating content, but just naturally having a conversation. So it's amazing, and I
Yeah.
already have all these assets I can use on my social media. And it was also the
Yeah.
dream selling
It's a bit.
scenario because I was having access to new audiences that I wouldn't otherwise have, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a contrast, isn't it? Because I know even today I struggle to put together content, particularly if it's a if it's a video or excuse me, if it's a video or an audio where it's just me presenting
yeah,
something, and I still struggle to make that as dynamic as a conversation,
that
and
awkward
yet
moment. Okay, it's
it's
on.
it's often yeah, it's often the same content, right? Um,
Absolutely.
Whereas, yeah, so what I start doing in those instances is I get an audience. So I do a webinar
Go
and
live or
and
something.
then yeah, it's a and I've turned it around the other way, as you say. I've used this idea of the guest podcasting and extracting the snippets for clients who say, well,
Yeah,
I have I have ideas, I have thoughts, but I can't write a post or I can't put it together. Can you help me write the post? And I say, well, let's just get on a live recording or and have a conversation. So we do what we're doing now,
yeah,
and then I will extract content from that
yeah. It's a
and
great
we'll
idea.
produce that content. And it doesn't nobody knows it came from this interview process because it's not meant to be audio or anything like that, but it's still a great way to get content. And like you say, when you've got it, to repurpose it, cut it up, and use bits of it is really valuable.
No, it's amazing.
So,
Amazing.
yeah, so can you walk us through each step of your dream method?
Yeah, for sure. Just to complete the thing, so I made that experiment, and then, but in the meantime, I was posting on my LinkedIn profile all the interviews, and people started to approach me asking,
Okay,
"Tiago,
yeah.
what's happening? How do you do this?" And okay, that's a sign. There's something here. That's how I went through to this dream method that we're going to talk about. But yeah, so
Actually,
the dream
before you
method. Oh,
before
sorry.
you describe that, question for you: did that evolve during that experiment? Did you, or were you pretty clear on the strategy right from the beginning?
No, it evolved because I made a ton of mistakes during that list. I have all the mistakes possible. I learned a lot by testing and also talking to hosts. I would always keep 10, 15, sometimes half an hour talking to them at the end, or even in the pre-interview chats. I had some pre-interview chats where I kind of didn't go through because it was not a match. And some coached me for free. Some hosts were coaching me for free. Like this one lady, she was listening to my pitch. And she said, Tiago, can I give you a piece of feedback? You cannot just give advice to people and information. That doesn't make you stand out from the pack. So you need to have a proprietary framework, something like the one I have now, the Dream Method, right?
Mm.
So I learned a lot to that, and it made me improve, test, iterate, talk to a lot of people, and my process was improving. My pitches were working better. I was becoming a better guest. I was making sure that I could collect. So I would basically be more interesting for both hosts and listeners, and that's how
Mm.
I started crafting this method that I nowadays use with my clients. So it's the Dream
Okay.
Method. It starts with the D, the first 5 steps are the D, the design. So this is where we position ourselves as an amazing guest and because it become an easy yes for hosts, right? Because most people like me, I was just giving advice, sharing information, not standing out. So what we need to do to figure out is okay, what is our hook, right? What makes us a bit different from the pack, right? What makes us unique? And that's why it's important to create our own proprietary framework that is not searchable on Google. It's like something that
Mm.
only you have and nobody else. And it's just something that doesn't have to be very complex. So, for example, my client I'm working with, Ricardo, he didn't like recipes. He said, I don't like one size fits all things. I don't like those kind of proprietary frameworks. But it's not about that. He had a process of its own that he followed with every client, even though he personalized it all. But and then we just okay, well, how many steps do you get? And we just branded it basically with the proprietary framework. But 5 steps,
Mm.
like this one, it can be as easy as that to create something unique to you. And then of course think about the topics you want to discuss on the podcast. No more than 3 to 4. And then yeah, write your. Ideally, you should. It's best to create a one sheet, a media one sheet where you talk about your bio, what your topics, what kind of questions you wanna ask. Is it something do you look at actually? Do you look at media one sheets?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you find it very
yeah.
important to you? Yeah.
Well, I some guests have them, some don't. Many don't. Most don't actually. Um, and yeah, I get as you probably have as well for your own podcast.
Yeah.
I get a whole range of pitches, ranging from ones that are very customized, where people have actually taken the time to listen to my podcast, have made a conscious decision that this is the audience they want to get in front of, firstly. Secondly, that they have something to contribute to my audience,
Good.
and they actually write or even record a video explaining exactly how they're going to show up on the podcast and what value they're going to add. So those ones stand out. Those
That's
ones
good.
are kind of the best practice by far. And then the other extreme is I get templated ones sometimes to the point where they've even forgotten to change the name of the
You told me
podcast and the
about
person from
that.
from the last email that they sent out.
Oh
And
goodness.
those ones I tend to simply go back and say they're probably not a good guest for the
Good.
show, and but I do give them some friendly advice. For example, in that one, I said I suggest if you do use templates, I said I'm not a fan of somebody using templates to send the same email to everybody. I said, but if you do use them, then at least get the name and the podcast name right.
At least you gave him a good piece of feedback, and I'm sure he'll
Yeah,
improve.
yeah,
But this design was even before we go pitching. So this is just okay. Prepare. You have to have
yeah. That's
something
right.
different,
Yeah.
a framework, your bio prepared, topics, what kind of questions. Also, it's also a good idea to help out the host because you're very busy people, right? You have
Mm.
overwhelmed with the amount of requests and you have little time. So why not make suggested questions to kind of support the host? Maybe he wants to follow the same script, or maybe he wants to get ideas from it. So it's a good good practice to make the life of the host as easy as possible, to make you sorry you're an amazing guest.
Mm.
That's the whole point of the design part. And then we go to the second step, which is the refine, mostly focused on the listeners. Okay, so it's important to get confidence and clarity on your message, so it has to resonate with your target audience. And you cannot just share a bunch of facts about your life. I did this. I was in this university, and then I went. That's it kind of doesn't. It's a bit boring. No, there's no connection there. So the idea, what I help my clients is to create their own origin story in a way that that reflects exactly what their current audience is feeling right now, which is usually their past, like what brought them
Mm.
to your current business. So, for example, my current client, he, did, he was thinking of creating a story about how exactly he created his SaaS company, like the nuts and bolts of that part. But that's not what is relevant for the audience. What is important for the audience is what made him in the first place have the idea of creating this kind of SaaS company. What was the problems he was feeling? And that's exactly where this my client is working on his origin story. So think about where your client is right now, what target client is, and then think about your own story, where you were, what matched with what they're feeling right now, create a connection. And you can follow, like, there's tons of storytelling frameworks out there. If you
Mm.
follow the most classic ones, you'll get there for sure. Like, how are you feeling before? What made you start this art, this path that you were in, etc. So there's a lot of things that can be there. But definitely working in an origin story is super important, so you don't just tell a bunch of facts, and then because people they will disconnect very quickly if you just do that.
Yeah.
And then we go to the third step, which is the engage part, and this is okay. Now we start connecting with the hosts
Mm.
in a way that attracts their attention and makes you stand out, because most people make this mistake. I was doing this. I was just talking about me in my beginning pitches, my first pitches. I was just telling me, yeah, I'm this, I'm amazing. I was in this podcast. I talk about these things. I. So it's not about us. It's all about the host. How can we make their lives easier? How can we add value to their audience? How can we create a connection with them that makes us stand out as well? So this is where you start sending your pitch emails. Yeah. But you have to, like you said, people have to you have to at least listen to a bit of an episode, minimum 10, 15.
Mm.
Listen to some parts of the episode and find something that you could, okay, I like this sentence, it resonates with me. I'm going to put that in the beginning of the email to make sure show that I listened to the episode. It made me think about something specific. And then yeah, it makes you stand out immediately if you do that, and not just a spammer or someone that just sent a templated email, which
Yeah.
is horrible. Create a connection with the person, show that how you're going to add value to that podcast, to that audience, and make the life easier of the hosts with the, yeah, look, I have this maybe one sheet with all the topics, all the questions. This is what I want to talk about. I'm sure it will be a good fit for your audience. Let's talk about it. And then, of course, it's very important to follow up because
Mm.
most people don't read the first email, or they read it and then I meant to answer this one, but then I forgot or something. So it's important
Yeah.
to people live busy lives, basically.
That's right. Yeah. And I just on that very point, and you've reminded me I didn't do it today. So
Oh,
my day to respond to podcast pitches is Wednesday, and today I didn't respond to any podcast pitches because I was so busy with other things.
exactly.
So I'll see if I can get to them tomorrow, but it may well be that I won't respond to those podcast pitches until next Wednesday now. So if somebody sent me a podcast pitch last Wednesday late, for example, they may have to wait 2 weeks for a response. So
Yeah,
just bear that in mind if you're pitching to podcast guests. Stuff like that will happen. That doesn't mean that I'm not interested as a host, doesn't mean the host's not interested. It means that they haven't got around to responding.
exactly. And so
Mm.
follow up is important, but also not any follow up, not nagging the person. Like give some time,
Yeah.
like 7 days, and be abundant, be positive, be humorous, even like I don't know, like
Yeah.
making a kind of a joke. It's always very good to kind of loosen up and make you stand out again from all the other
Mm.
templated follow ups, etc. that people send over. So that's exactly how you engage, and then you start getting booked, right? If you do it consistently, with a follow up, and this is
Mm.
going to the fourth step, which is to attract. Okay, so this is about the listeners. how we have to be ourselves and magnetically attract our clients by having an amazing conversation, but having some logical next step at the end, right? If we just, I was doing the mistake of, I hope you will ask the question at the end, how can people know about you or some more information about you? And I was doing the arrow saying, I don't know, follow me on social media or book a call, something like that. It doesn't, has to be something engaging, something compelling for the listener that just listen to your story. What can make them take up their phones and type the thing that you want them to do afterwards? Because podcast listeners are busy doing something else, right? Or in the gym or they're in the car.
Yeah.
We need to
Right.
give a very compelling reason for them to do it now and not to later, and then they forget about it, right? So the call to action at the end, it should not be something about follow me on social media. That's not really compelling, and it should be only one thing. You cannot tell them to do hundreds of
Yeah.
things, because then it's not very specific. And the call to action. This is where I usually help my clients. I suggest my clients to create something, a free resource, right? A free resource of some kind that would be useful for them to implement something that they just heard and that is compelling. Is something they really want to get solved right now, right? It has to be something that they feel, I need to find out more about this, right? Yeah, it has to be the logical next step. It has to be something that they really want to solve right now. And I prefer to help my clients to create irresistible offers, not just one PDF or one short video. I like to create almost like a whole course. Like, I have these videos that will help you do this. I have this worksheet that will implement the same thing. Something that stands out from all the other call to actions that people have heard in the past. So super important, this call to action at the end. And I can show you an example at the end of this episode.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll give you that opportunity.
Thanks so
So
much.
certainly asked that question. In fact, I asked two questions at the end, which is
Yes,
we'll get to those.
that's perfect. That's perfect. And then
Yeah, yeah.
finally, we go to the last stage, which is the M of multiply. And this is where we should leverage multiple marketing assets out of each episode that we create. This is where the dream marketing scenario comes, right? Even before they go live. So I like to ask hosts if they're willing or able to send me the raw file after we record the episode. I'm going to ask you the same thing after we stop recording, and which is interesting for us to because basically most people get on an interview and then just forget about it. The period, but the
Yeah.
period between the recording and the go live is possibly the most profitable. It's when you just freshly create a new content. So start uh, creating reels for your audience, like anticipation posts. All of those giving credit to the host, so it shows the host again that you are someone who's contributing, wants to help grow the podcast. And it's also important to nurture the relationship with the host during this period, not just disappear. Right? Make sure you follow the
Yeah.
person, engage on social media, so send some messages, comments, etc. Because from these partnerships we're creating, this relationship we're creating, many things can come out of this, either partnerships or referral partnerships or referrals for other podcasts. So it's very important to nurture that relationship and also to show that you are willing to help. Ask questions about the business of the host. How can you help them? So yeah, there's a lot of things that can come out of one podcast episode
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
forget to do.
Yeah, that's there's so much there. I mean, I'm sort of smiling all the time because I just love all the various bits and pieces. And clearly, after having done 67 um, podcast appearances as a guest in short space of time and getting that feedback and being open to take feedback on board and learn, you've kind of hit a lot of high points there. And I love um, I think for me, the keys as a guest on podcast, determining who the right audience is that you get in front of, and then going in with the approach of how can I add maximum value to the audience and how can I make it as easy as possible for the host,
Yes.
and also of course add value to the host as well, and then sort of on the end of that as well, looking at building the relationship. So that's where we've built our community, the Flyball Nation community, where we invite all our guests to come on as thank you It's complimentary for them as a thank you for contributing to the podcast, contributing content to our ecosystem, if you like. And of course, that's where a whole lot of opportunities have come about, because it's not just the once off in the podcast, it's the ongoing relationships.
Do you feel that if you didn't do that, most guests would forget to like they'll go on an interview and then never reach out again, or do you feel that there's a certain percentage of people
Um,
that do that, or
there is a risk of that, but I kind of
yeah,
I'm active in keeping in touch
yes,
with
yes,
those
yes,
guests, because like you said earlier in the discussion, that to me, as an introvert, I sort of realized very quickly, this is a fantastic networking opportunity that I feel quite comfortable in, whereas going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting or another networking thing, I kind of feel very uncomfortable there. And unless I see a group of people I know who I can then go and talk to, um, then I sort of feel like a fish out of water. And yet going to a bunch of people I know to talk to is not the purpose of that exercise, right? It's really about meeting new people, but it's not targeted. And as I say, I'm an introvert, so I feel very
yeah.
uncomfortable in that scenario, and it's very hard for me. Whereas the podcasting is just so natural. Meet
Okay.
people, get introduced to more people, and I continue those conversations there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super abundant because we're networking while adding value to other people, right? Audiences. So
Mm.
everyone wins basically, right? The guest wins because he's getting a chance to talk about his approach, etc., and getting access to new audiences. The host wins because he's getting free content for his own audience and networking with new people. And the audience wins because out of this conversation, magical things come out of it usually, right? If
Yeah.
done properly.
That's
It's the
right.
most
Yeah.
abundant
Yeah.
way to create content because it's authentic. It comes out naturally. We're chatting. It's not something formatted or robotic. I love it.
Hmm. All right. Well, during that intense 4 month podcasting blitz, was there kind of something that really stood out that kind of changed your whole approach?
I think that lady that I mentioned, it was one of the the biggest breakthroughs. The pre-chat I had lots of pre-chats
Yeah.
that I got a lot of value, but that one specifically really clicked on me because of the fact of just I think it's natural for us to, especially for me. Stories don't come out naturally to me. It's something that is I have to remind myself constantly because I'm usually
Hmm.
a bit Spock, like that's not logical. So I need to. I usually turn on the information and advice and mode and become a teacher, and that is not what people look for in this kind of podcast. Um, we need to first of all, like she said, have something unique to us, not just what everyone else can find on the internet, on YouTube.
Hmm.
Information is just abundant. We're flooded with information nowadays, and people want to relate. They want to create a connection with us of some sort, and it is usually only possible if we, first of all, have something of our own that we created our own through our experiments, our experimentations, our testing, and through our story. If we start wrapping all of our content and advice and information in the point of view of our own story or a client stories, as it also works,
Hmm.
it comes differently to the at the ear of the person listening, because we're wired to share information through stories, and this is something super smart to do. And if you're not having success, if you the listener, if you're not having success, if you're going to amazing podcasts and not having the results you want, you're probably screwing up on this point. You are just giving information. You're being sharing boring facts of life, not sharing your story, not sharing a story that connects with the listener, and not having something unique to yourself, just generic information. This is probably the reason why it's not working. And this is what I learned the most impactful
Yeah.
learning from my experiment.
Yeah. One of the things I find is a lot of people go in with the expectations that you do one or two podcast guest appearances, and all of a sudden you get flooded with business, or you get flooded with other invitations to different podcasts and so on. That's certainly not the case, right? You've got to actually do the follow up. You've got to build those relationships that you've started. You've also got to continue to work the system, whether it's the dream system or whether you have another system, that you continue to work that to get on more podcasts.
Absolutely, absolutely. Keep doing it, going at it, and remember that, like you said, it's not going to come out like magically. All the listeners of the one episode will flock to you. It's not going to happen in that sense. But there are things you can do to make it more likely to happen, right? But first of all, I look at it mostly as a networking relationship creation strategy, which is amazing. Only if you do only that, it's already amazing, because podcast hosts are super influential. They're very well connected people. Some interviewed more than 600 people, like you did, so they know a lot of people, which is a very smart thing to do if you think about creating partnerships or referral partnerships, etc. And then to make sure you have a call to action at the end, it has to be something very, very, very compelling. If you do that, you'll capture a few people out of each episode. If it's super, super compelling, like irresistible, you'll get more people in that sense.
Yeah.
But it has to be worked on, trained, practiced, tested, iterated. And then I was going to say something else about the making it more impactful. Yeah, and of course, it's not just the episodes themselves, not just the listeners of the episode. Think about your own audience as well. So you're going to be sharing amazing parts of the interview with people. They will, oh, okay, this is a great content. He's being interviewed by someone. He must be an authority, right? Subconsciously, people think that. And you're adding amazing, authentic content to your own audience. And of course, you can use also the full interview, a long form interview, to warm up your maybe cold leads you have. Like you're trying to convince them, but it's just not working. And you can say, look, this is an interview I've made with Jurgen. I've talked about my story, my approach. See me in action. Here you go. Let me know what you think. So these are all tools you can use out of one interview, and not just the episode that you did and then forget about it and hope that it will work. You have to be active, and things for sure will come out.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point. And you talked earlier also about repurposing the content and cutting it up. So there's a lot that can be done with that one episode, right?
Absolutely. It's multi wins out of one episode. Instead of spending 1 hour creating a reel, like many people do on Instagram, thinking about the best reel, editing it, you could be having a chat with Jurgen and then having all these wins coming out of one interview, because you're not just stuck in your room looking at the camera. You are interacting with, sometimes live audiences, other audiences, a person in front of you that is super well connected, influential. You can always help each other out. It's I love it, really.
Excellent. All right. Well, I could talk podcasting with you for ages, but I'm just aware of the time. So I think it's a good point now where we move on to the buzz, our innovation round. That's the same 5 questions I ask of every guest. And the idea is you'll give us some really sharp answers and inspire the listener to go and do something awesome as a result today. So you all set?
Let's go.
Yeah. What's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think it's to experiment a lot, test a lot, get out of the comfort zone, because that's where the most opportunities come out. Just testing and getting yourself out there.
Yeah. And being open to that feedback that
exactly
you can learn from, right?
Opportunities come out like that when you start moving new things, start trying new things, right? Like new feedback. You learn from your audience what is working, what is not working. You ask potential clients what do they want, what do they don't want, how do they feel about it. It's basically a lot of testing, experimenting, and talking a lot to people.
Yeah, great. All right, now what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
To develop new ideas, actually, what works best for me, and I tend to not do it too much, is to get out of the computer and remove all the distractions from me, because I'm always listening to something, some podcast, some audio course that I'm listening, or some audiobooks. But the best thing to do to get new ideas and innovation is when you disconnect completely. And for example, when I'm in the shower, I'm not doing anything. All my ideas come to my mind because I let my subconscious finally work. Finally start gathering all the data points that I got throughout the day and make something new and give me a new idea, something innovative, or just go for a walk. Just basically disconnect from internet.
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the best thing for me. Does it work for you too?
yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? If you disconnect for a little bit, and particularly if I find if I engage some other part of my mind, whatever, it's sort of the
Mhm.
creative side, go out photography or hiking or go out for a bike ride on my own, then I sort of have that experience like I do in the shower sometimes,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
everything's just quietened down and something bubbles up from the
Oh,
unconscious. Yeah,
it's amazing how
yeah,
it works.
it's wonderful. All right, what's a favorite resource you use most often?
Favorite resource? I'd say it's my Audible, my Audible account.
Yeah,
That it's incredible how do you know what's the name of not Nightingale Conant, the it's a publisher of that collected all the amazing public speakers, self-development experts in the world like Jim Rohn, etc. They collected all their seminars and workshops in one part of
yeah,
Audible. I don't know how I have access to it,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's amazing how I'm just washing my dishes and getting in my mind some of the best people,
yeah,
best
yeah.
thoughts ever, and passively consuming it.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
incredible. It's incredible.
It is amazing, isn't it? And I'm always surprised. Most podcasters are big fans of Audible.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah,
true. We just love this format, right?
yeah, yeah. It's the same medium. All right. What's the best way to keep a client on track?
To keep a client on track, I think first of all is accountability. Keep following up with them, and not just let them, you know, forget about the things that they're gonna do.
Yeah,
So it's super important to keep in touch and following up. And I think this is one of the most useful things we can do as coaches. If you're a coach, if you're a mentor, if you're a course creator, even is to make sure that the person is motivated and accountable and
mm,
is actually implementing things because it's the only way that they will progress, right?
yeah, yeah,
And if they don't progress, we as coaches, mentors, etc., we're not going to have success. We're not going to have success stories. We're not going to have testimonials. So I think, yeah,
yeah,
following up, keeping them accountable, and making their
yeah.
lives easy. So not give your whole like the big mistake I did at the beginning of my career was to create an encyclopedia course with everything I knew and try to and just
Yeah.
overwhelm them with information. And that shouldn't be the case. It has to be what is the 80/20 that will get them to the results faster, smoother, easier.
Mm,
So those two things maybe
yeah, that's
giving small pieces of information that they can implement
yeah.
and keep them accountable.
Keep the focus, yeah, and keep them motivated. Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, and finally, and we've talked a little bit about this. What's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Yeah. So first of all, be very specific in who you help, the person, the context,
Mm,
what is our context, and also what is the specific problem that the person was trying to solve. So if you target all your communication or your selling, all your delivering into those two spheres, like a person and problems, it's going to be much easier for you to have an impact on those people because they will feel that okay, this is exactly for me. This message is for me. This person understands me deeply, not just another generic coach, consultant, service provider
mm,
that wants to help anyone and everyone. So specificity there on the niche, how people call it, and then of course having something that is unique to you, like
yeah,
your framework, your proprietary framework.
yeah,
I drill down on this so much because it's super important, not just for the podcasting area, but also for your selling area, to
mm,
have something that is that people to make the people feel that they haven't tried this before. Everything else didn't work, but there's a new approach. There's a different approach that
mm,
is specific to this person that created it. Um, so to think about, you can think about it in different ways. Maybe take a look at your origin story, how you got to this. Maybe you found something new, a tool, a book, or a mentor that you met. that will make you unique because it's your unique story, right? Or maybe you gather two different skills and you put them together to create something new.
Mm.
um, there's lots of
Yeah.
ways you can think about maybe your process. Maybe you do the same thing as other coaches, mentors, service providers do, but maybe nobody talks about it. And maybe you can create, okay, this is my 5-step framework, how I run through it
Mm.
with my clients, and it's called the dream method. Right? It's something new,
Yeah.
something unique.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are
Yeah. I
two.
don't think one of the things you said there also is really important, knowing who you help. And I think that's, to me, that's a big key for getting onto podcasts as a guest is, is this an audience that's interested in what I have to offer? Are they an audience, or are there people in that audience that I might be able to help? If
Yes,
not,
that's very
then
important.
then
I might be able
there's
to
a
help.
level of mismatch there. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. When times we forget about that target audience has to be able to buy, to implement what we are trying to
Mm.
help them achieve, right? Because some people may don't have enough time to implement our approach or our system or whatever. Some people might not have the right mindset, are not prepared. We need to be specific in terms of also how are they able to implement what we want them to do.
Mm. All right. Well, great, Tiago. Thanks for getting us through the buzz round. Now, where can people find out more about you and maybe even get in touch and say thanks for what you've shared today?
Yes, thank you so much, Jürgen. So I would love to. Maybe I'm going to give you an example of what I call an interesting call to action for my own target audience. Because, yeah, as I said, I love to create irresistible offers, not just some random thing that they could connect with me. So that's why I said a whole bunch of things for your listeners for free, because I know how hard it is to get booked and to impress the host and to know exactly how to be an amazing guest. And you don't have to be on 67 podcasts like I did to figure it out the hard way like I did. I already cracked the code. So I'm going to share it with you so you don't so you start doing it the right way from the get-go. So first, I'll provide to the person free access to my Being an Amazing Guest. It's a worksheet that I use with my clients. If you complete that, you'll immediately position yourself as an attractive guest. Again, because you'll have the framework, the hook, and the things that makes you stand out and become an easy yes for hosts. And it's very easy to complete because basically it's some prompt questions, and if you answer them correctly, you'll have it already prepared for yourself. And I'm going to also share with you the origin story worksheet, where you simply have to answer another prompt questions, and seamlessly you create your origin story in a way that resonates with your listeners, that keeps their attention and generates a great amount of trust. And this is again where most people screw up. If you're getting on good podcasts and not getting the results you want, this is the point we're messing up. Okay, so the story, origin story crafting, and making sure it resonates with the audience and connects with your offering. It's all part of it. And then finally, I'll share with you the template that got me booked on 67 podcasts. And it received some answers of people, of hosts saying, I usually don't answer these emails, but I have to say this was one of the best I've got. This will make you stand out from all the other spams and go through the filters of the
Mm.
host and get you booked. So to get access to this, all you have to do is go to tiagofaria.pt/gift. I can share in the notes if possible.
Yeah.
And that you'll go redirected to my LinkedIn, basically my LinkedIn profile, to a specific post about this offering, and you just have to comment gift on that LinkedIn post, especially ideally to comment gift and Innova.buzz, so I know you come from this podcast. It would be cool. And then I can send over all these resources. You can also contact me there on LinkedIn. I'm super active there. You can lurk my content. I'm posting there every day. And again, at tiagofaria.pt/gift.
Excellent. That's great. And of course, we'll have the link in the show notes so people can click straight through, make it really easy. Okay. Finally, as we wrap up, Tiago, what action would you like, apart from going and downloading that gift and going through that exercise, what action would you like our listener to take from our conversation today?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do would be thinking about. I think is mostly the what makes you stand out from the rest. This is,
Mm.
I think, it's an exercise that helps you in every sense of your business. Most people don't think really about this. Why should people choose you and not anyone else, any other solution
Mm.
in the market? If you don't have an answer in one sentence, it means you can be a bit in trouble. It's going to be hard for you to stand out. It's going to be hard for you to attract the attention of the right people. So think about this question: why should people choose you and not any other option in the market? And if that answer doesn't come out easily, you should think about creating a proprietary framework, something that makes
Yeah.
you unique. It's unique to you and is not searchable on Google.
Yeah, it's a great call to action, and certainly something well worth thinking about, and articulating what that is, right? Mm.
Absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right.
And you'll see that most people, I couldn't do it before. Most people don't do it naturally. It doesn't come out naturally. They
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
just do this and that. People just show up. So that's not
yeah.
stand up.
All right. Well, thanks very much for sharing your time and your insights so generously today, Tiago. It's been fascinating to learn about how you've kind of done that experiment and how you've been open to learning from that, and where you've come in that journey and developing your method and helping other people now land podcast guest appearances, and not just land those appearances, but really show up as their best on those shows, and then use the content that they've developed or that they've generated there to actually expand their whole marketing efforts, not just to support the host of that podcast, but to support their own business as well, which is what the big value is, I think, in podcast marketing, right? So thanks so much
Absolutely.
for sharing your time and your insights. I really enjoyed it, and please do stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. It was an honor, super fun, and a true pleasure to be here with you. Hope people take something interesting and useful out of this.